What's up, Bombshells? Welcome to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Kia, and I'm your host. Generally, podcasts request donations, but I want you to show love by simply subscribing to my social media platforms by visiting my website at www.bombshell1111podcast.com. I want to see thousands of subscribers on this platform. Leave your comments and I'll show love by shouting you out on my social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. I want to thank you for your continued support as always. And with that being said, let's jump into this new episode.
Hello, I'm Brooke, and I'm here tonight to drop some bombs with Bombshell 1111.
Welcome back, Bombshells. I'm Kia, and I'm your host. Tonight, you guys will be discussing trauma bonding with our special guest, Brooke. So without further ado, Bombshells, let's jump right into it. Welcome, Brooke. How are you?
I'm lovely. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming on and being a part of the podcast. I'm so happy that you could come on and share your knowledge and tools with the listening audience. And it's just a coincidence that on my platform, I just posted a book that I most recently got and I'm working through, which is a shadow journal. And it addresses some of the issues that you specifically specialize in, like trauma bonding and things of that nature. And I'm so happy that you came on tonight because it kind of coincides with everything. So thank you so much for coming on and deciding to be a part of the podcast.
For sure. I know what you're talking about. I love that shadow work journal. That stuff is really deep and really helps you kind of get to the deeper parts of yourself.
Oh my God, yes. And I was like, when I started to get into it deep and really trying to figure out those wounds and things like that, I'm like, oh my God, I thought it was only like two, but no, it's like this. I mean, but it's
all the wounds.
Right. But it's a great thing to be able to recognize that so that you are able to work on those things. And so I'm glad that I did get that book because it's helping me to be able to kind of put the pieces together. Okay, well, this is why I was like this in this part of my life and probably this relationship or this it's coincident, this circumstance. So I really do like it. But enough about the book. Let's jump right into the episode and discuss what you're here to talk about tonight, which is yourself and trauma bonding. So there will be a short description down below with who you are, where you're from, and what you do. But I like to give you guys, the guests, an opportunity to do that verbally at the top of our podcast. So can you just tell us who you are, where you're from, and what do you do, Brooke?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Brooke Kekos, and I am an RTT therapist, a trauma healing coach, and an NLP practitioner. And what I do is really help empower women after they've been in abusive relationships or they have survived, deep things like sexual abuse and assault. So it really causes some very large wounds. And part of that is trauma bonding, right, with our abusers. Yeah. And that was my story. So I really am here to help women get empowered and to identify their wounds so that they can heal.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So let's just go ahead and dig right in. We may be using terminology that some of the listening audience may not be familiar with and may be actually going through this particular circumstance as we speak. So just for clarification, Brooke, what is trauma bonding? And how does one know if they are in a trauma bonding relationship or have experienced that?
Yeah, so a trauma bond is really attaching to someone who actually causes you harm. So if there's attachment, often forms because we don't necessarily realize that we're actually in an abusive relationship, right? We fall in love, right? We get into the first part of the relationship where the abuser is basically love bombing us, right? Making us become dependent on them. And then from there, they start to use manipulative tactics to kind of keep control over us. And that abuse kind of can show up in emotional ways, physical, sexual, financial. And by then we're already trauma bonded to our abuser, right? And we're in the pattern of the abuse, and we're all of a sudden feeling like if we lose that abuser, that we're not loved or we're not going to be accepted. So we keep continuing to kind of fight for that love.
Mm-hmm. And so, Brooke, why do people fall into trauma bonding relationships? Why? Just from your expertise and your experience.
Yeah, so honestly, for myself, I'm going to speak about my own experience first, and this might resonate with someone that's listening. My own experience began when I was a child, when I witnessed an abusive relationship between my parents. And then my father was the narcissistic, abusive man. So I only knew that to be my truth. I didn't know anything different. So that is how I then got trapped into more abusive relationships, because it had become my familiar. It was part of my pattern.
Wow. And that's so true. I hear that a lot of past experiences kind of mold them into, not necessarily them into being that particular person, but people kind of experience that same kind of circumstance if you have that, that experience with being around that. When we talk about trauma bonding, there are many different stages of trauma bonding, but I know, all over TikTok, social media, people use this terminology a lot, gaslighting. But there are also other stages of trauma bonding, like a criticism. From your, again, expertise and personal experience, can you just talk a little bit about the different stages of trauma bonding?
Yeah, so we did talk about that love bombing, right? That first came, and then so we create that kind of that dependency on the abuser, and then it works both ways, right? The abuser is dependent on the victim, and the victim is dependent on the abuser, because you're in this cyclical space of the repeated pattern of abuse. And then also that criticism is when they're hypercritical of the victim, right? They constantly are criticizing that victim and making them feel less than. And so with that criticism, all of a sudden you start to turn that internally, and you start to self-blame yourself and believe what the abuser is telling you, which is, maybe this is all my fault, what they're telling me, right? And that's kind of where that gaslighting comes in, where it's manipulative, right? Gaslighting is basically denying the victim's reality and saying that, no, that didn't happen. Or kind of putting in their own words, yes, this did happen, right? So not letting then the victim is like confused and is unsure of themselves or what really happened or what the truth is. And an abuser uses that as a tactic for control, right? If you can confuse the victim and if you can gaslight them and deny their reality, then it's going to continue to keep them in that cycle. They can continue to control their victim.
And why is it so hard or difficult, I should say, to leave those trauma bonding relationships?
I always had, everybody's like, why did you stay? Why did you stay? And, I didn't know, again, any different. It was a familiar pattern. My nervous system was normalized to the chaos. Right? That was familiar. And so it became almost like what they call a chemical dependency on that fluctuation of the highs and the lows, of that crazy dopamine to that very low, right? So, you get in that abusive cycle, what happens? You have an incident happens, there's a blow up, right? And the abuser is angry at you. There's a fight, something happens, whether they hit you or not, there's something that blows up. And then there's the reconciliation, and that reconciliation makes you feel that love again, and it makes you give you that extra dependency to say, okay, well, maybe this next time they will change, right? But we don't know that the fact is that they are never going to change, right? It's just that we give out hope, and so that's why we can kind of get really trapped in that space, because we think that that's love.
And just because you have had the experience and you can definitely speak on it, what does it feel like to finally break a trauma bond? What does that feel like?
I love how you asked that question, Leslie. It feels like you're coming off a drug, and I'm not a drug addict, but I'll tell you right now, that relationship was my drug. I put him on a pedestal, and that's usually what you do. It's why they call it Stockholm syndrome, right? Where you put that abuser on a pedestal, and you think that that they're perfect, and it's like this fantasy that you kind of create that there's this passion and this closeness, but what it really is this very vicious cycle of codependency and the chemicals that come with that. So once I went off of I got free from the relationship, I literally did feel like I was coming off of a drug. I couldn't eat. I had extreme anxiety, couldn't sleep. All I could think about was him. It was obsession. It was like, how do I get more of my drug? How do I get more? How do I get it back? How do I get my drug back? And yeah, I had to go through that really painful process and feel the fact that I needed to get detached from it.
And with that being said, the things that you said you experienced, those emotions, those feelings that you went through, is trauma bonding a mental health issue?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Say that again.
With knowing that and experiencing that, those feelings, those different emotions, would you say that trauma bonding can be considered a mental health issue as well?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it is, right? Because that's not healthy. But at the same time, I wasn't taught what healthy relationships looked and felt like. And so my idea of love was what I experienced from that relationship. And when I lost it, I felt abandoned, right? I felt like I was all alone and I didn't have anything or anyone. And it really, that wasn't the truth. It was actually the healthiest thing for me was to break free from him, because he was actually hurting me, and it wasn't love. It just felt like it was love.
Yeah. And so for someone who may want to get help, but may not know where to turn to, what would be the first steps? What is the first step to getting help with trauma bonding?
Honestly, for myself and for any woman that I ever, kind of get in contact with, is really getting the knowledge and the awareness first. So doing your research and being like, okay, if, am I in a trauma bond relationship? Look for the signs, right? We have good old Google now, and you literally can find an answer to everything, right? So get the awareness around what is narcissism, what is gaslighting, what is trauma bonding, and how does that feel, and maybe what it looks like. And so sometimes like that for myself, it started to give me the awareness of what the relationship really was. And it awakened me to the fact that, okay, I needed to dig deeper. I needed to search for this and to see what this relationship really was like. And I think the best thing that you can do is get the therapist, right? Get someone that can help you kind of see through the confusion and the veil that the abuser has kind of put before your eyes.
And that's a good segue into my next question. You just stated, get the help, speak with a therapist, and you would be one of those therapists. So let's talk about what you do and how do you go about helping, people through these situations. And I did have another question, I guess, to that. Do you specifically help men and women, or just women, or what is your specialty?
Yes, I do help both. Obviously, I feel more called to help women because of everything that I survived. And I feel like women are, I'm not saying that men aren't victims, but I feel like women are more victims of this. And I really feel called to really help kind of awaken these women to see that they don't have to be treated like this. They can empower themselves, and that's really what it's about, right? Helping them see through the things and the lies that they've been told, that they can do this for themselves. They are capable.
Yeah. And so what does your services look like? Are you doing these services in person, virtually, online? How does your service work?
Yeah, so I do both. I do them in person. I'm here in Arizona, and then I also do them via Zoom. So I really kind of help people to identify what got them trapped in the relationship that they're in to begin with. And it usually starts in childhood. It's about deep beliefs that we have, limiting beliefs about ourselves. And we were talking about wounds, and that happens in childhood. We carry sometimes these abandonment wounds or these rejection wounds that can kind of keep us trapped in these relationships because we're so afraid of leaving. Because we are afraid of being abandoned. We're afraid of that rejection. So it'll keep us kind of trapped in that cycle. And so I really want to help people identify those wounds and start from the childhood up to identify the trauma. And then to be able to see how they can actually become more empowered to see that how they should be treated and what a healthy relationship looks like.
And so, Brooke, how can a listening audience get connected to you for your services or just for more information?
So they can reach me on my website at lifecoachinggoddess.com, or they can reach out to me and just make an appointment there. There's a calendar link and we can have a chat. It's free consultation. And we can kind of just see where they're at in their current relationship or, what's kind of coming up for them that maybe they want to dig deeper on.
And Brooke, is there anything you feel that I missed that you would like to share with the listening audience before we head out here for tonight?
Yes, I would definitely just say, if you are in a relationship where you feel any type of fear, if you feel like you are all alone and you're unfulfilled and you're unhappy, that there is another way. You do have a choice and you can choose differently for yourself and for your life, and to never be afraid that you're always going to be supported and that you can find the means to be able to live differently.
Thank you so much for that, Brooke. And you guys, I want to thank Brooke so much. Thank you again, Brooke, for coming on and sharing your knowledge and tools with the listening audience. I hope you come back and share with us again. So again, thank you. And I wish you the best on your future endeavors as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here.
You're more than welcome. And so you guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Brooke for joining us. We hope that you were able to hear something beneficial to you. And with that being said, thanks for listening. And always remember, you are bound within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. Until next time, good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell 1111 or at Bombshell 1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.